Kolkata Literature Festival for having us here and giving me the opportunity to be in conversation with my very, very favorite author, Devdutt Pattanaik ji. We have a very interesting theme today, myth, mudra and metaverse. सुनने से बहुत अलग तीन चीज़ें हो जाती है. Myth, which is your subject of authority. मुद्रा, जिसके बारे में मुझे थोड़ा पता है. And metaverse, जिसके बारे में हम सब जानना चाहते हैं. I will... देवदत्त जी का माइक ऑन कर दीजिए प्लीज.
Check.
Yes.
If I may ask you my
Sure.
first question, because these are heavy words with a lot of connotations. So, and since you are a mythologist, mythologist, sorry, my bad. There are three things that I keep getting confused between. Myth, legends, or folklore, and of course history. What is the difference between the three and why do we confuse them?
So if we lived about 200 years ago, we wouldn't ask this question because all these words meant the same thing. So it's only in the last 100 years, 150 years that we are separating stories. So if somebody says something happened in the past, the historian will check whether it is an objective truth. So history comes into the realm of objective events that happened in the past. So that's the key word, is objectivity. When you talk of mythology, the key word is subjectivity. And you are talking of a people's story. So it is not universal story. It is not something that everybody will agree on. So I believe Ram came here. I believe Krishna lived there. It's belief, it's faith. That is the realm of mythology. Then there are stories that play a very important political role, that explain a particular, gives a king a right. I am the king of this land because the goddess appeared in my dream and gave me a sword. That's a legend. So legend will always have a political connotation. And folklore is just any story that is told by people. And folklore can be legend, folklore can be a parable, folklore can be mythology. Folklore may give a clue to history, but may not be history, because history is a particular way of studying today. As I said, 100 years ago, these differences would not make a difference. Everything would be history. So for example, the University of Cambridge gets its charter from King Arthur. Now, King Arthur is not a historical figure. So Cambridge University connects itself with King Arthur. But that happened in the 14th century when they saw King Arthur as a historical figure. Today we don't see that. We see it as a legendary figure, not a mythological figure, but a legendary figure because it has political connotations for England.
Definitely. So just a continuity question over here. Are there certain ingredients, as a master storyteller that you are, certain ingredients in a story, say a folklore, that elevate it to the level of mythology?
So mythology usually deals with big things like how did the world come into being, what is going to happen to the world, how does it transform over time. So for example, the God created the world is a very big theme. Goddess created the world. That's another big theme. The sun is one day going to go away. Or once upon a time there were two suns in the sky. Now that's a very big theme because you're trying to explain how the world came into being. So myths play this very big role. In ancient Egypt, for example, they believed that the ancestors liked to eat bread and beer. And that is why agriculture picks up in ancient Egypt. Before that, agriculture doesn't pick up. For thousands of years, they knew agriculture, but agriculture was not part of the Egyptian civilization. Until one day, somebody came and said, the gods love bread and the gods love beer, which means now you have to grow wheat and make bread and beer. So now that's a big theme, right? It changes the entire society's way of thinking. So that becomes in the realm of myth. That would not be there. It is a very big idea that emerges and changes society completely.
Sure. Very interesting. Also brings me to my next question. As Kathak dancer, we've been taught a lot about Nataraj. And one story that I have heard in my family is कि उनके डमरू के नाद से हमारे सृष्टि को phonetics मिले, music मिला, languages मिले, and the rhythm that it created also उससे सृष्टि का संचार हुआ. When I hear stories like this, they are very fantastical. But is there a deeper philosophy behind them that we tend to miss when we hear these stories?
See, we are always, as people, wanting to understand the origin of things. So I want to know, where did language emerge? Now, if I can give you a boring scientific reason, it's not fun. But if I tell you that, Shiv ke damru se nikla hai, for those who are familiar with the idea of Shiv, this becomes a great way of explaining. The sound, vibrations create something, and then a story emerges, and therefore the language emerges. So that's very powerful. If you know who Shiva is, if you go and tell the story in Japan, they won't connect. They will say, what are you talking about? It doesn't make sense. It makes sense. That's why mythology is very local, very people-based. It is not, you cannot take it outside people. And that's what makes it powerful. So, for example, the weavers would tell ki when was the first cloth woven. So the first cloth, they will say ki jab Vishnu ke nabhi kamal ka phool uga tha. So a lotus flower emerged from Vishnu's navel, and the lotus stalk was used to produce the first fiber. And from that, Bhavana Rishi, who was the son of Markandeya, wove the first cloth. Now this story is going to be told by a weaver to his children. Now he feels a sense of pride कि हम उस वंशज से हैं जिन्होंने ऐसे बनाया था. So you find these stories in folk, in families, in communities, which gives them a sense of identity. So ऐसे ही शिवजी की डमरू. The more classical story of Shivji's Nataraj is that when people were performing the yajna, they did not understand what they were doing. They were just doing the yajna, and Shiva is trying to explain it to them, and he is communicating the idea of the Vedas through dance. Because he says, शब्दों से इनको समझ में नहीं आएगा, तो मैं नाच के दिखाऊंगा. Now, if I want to explain this to a child today, I will say Shiva was playing dumb charades. Because that's what we do, right? What is dumb charades? You move your body to get meaning, which is what dance is. You move your body in a very particular way to communicate an idea, a mood, a bhav, a rasa. So that communication, so then Shiva's dance becomes a method of communication. So then Nataraj, because he's the god of dance, through dance he's explaining something which cannot be explained through words. जो शब्दों में नहीं पकड़ सकते हो वो मुद्राओं से पकड़ा जाता है. So I can explain things to you through mudra. So when I draw a drawing, I can show things. So आजकल हम emoji use कर रहे हैं ना? Emoji. So what is emoji? Emoji is art. So you're using a diagram to explain a concept. So Shiva will do this. ये से डरो मत. Abhaya mudra. Abhaya. Daro mat. Even Buddha does it. So this becomes Abhaya mudra. He does this. It becomes Varada mudra. Kuch lo. So Lakshmi is doing this. You have this mudra. So there are different the patakas. Then there is, excuse me. Look at Krishna. The Jain Tirthankaras stand perfectly perpendicular to the ground. So if you see the Jain Tirthankara, there is no movement. He is very straightly standing. And Sri Krishna will stand in a Tribhangi position. He is bent. Now that's a communication. So visually, how the Tirthankara stands and the way Sri Krishna stands with a Tribhangi pose, which is typically associated with women, is now a very powerful statement. right? The dancing girl or the so-called dancing girl of Mohenjo-daro is holding her hand this thing. We all know कि ऐसे खड़े रहोगे तो एक भाव व्यक्त होता है. तो मुद्राओं के माध्यम से, मुद्रा is emoji, हम उसको communicate कर रहे हैं. तो that is what mudras are about.
जी, ज़रूर. We've been talking about Shiva and his dance, and every dancer in the house would know that Shiva's dance is associated with Tandav. And in his Ardhanarishwar Swarup, we have the Lasya and the Tandav come together. But I have a very genuine question. As a dancer, I don't know this. What was the dance like before Shiva got married and Parvati completed him? Was there no Lasya before that? Was there just Tandav?
So when there was no marriage, there was no dance. So that's the idea which is being communicated in the story of Shiv Puran, where in the absence of the other, you don't exist. So the idea, till the other comes, so the famous line, right? If a tree falls in the forest and nobody sees it, does it actually fall? So these sentences are told as a philosophical points, but a simple question is, Parvati saying that what is the point of talking if there is no one to listen to? What is the point of cooking if there is no one eating? What is the point of dancing if there is no one enjoying what you are doing? So the act of dancing and the act of conversation starts with Shiva Parvati Samvad. So universe begins, they say. अकेले दुनिया में कुछ नहीं होता है. तुम अकेले हो, so you are of no value because you are alone. You are of value only when someone consumes you. जब कोई आपका भोग करता है, जब भोगी होता है, तुम भोग बनते हो, and at that moment you get meaning. आपका कोई मूल्य होता है. Like the sun has no value until the plant looks for the sun in search of sunlight. And that is what makes the plant valuable, because every plant is looking towards the sun, because if the sun was not there, the plants would not get nourishment. Banjar Zameen is not looking at the sun. It doesn't care. Stones don't care for the sun. Only plants fall in love with the sun because they're getting food from the sun. And that is what Parvati is saying. So when we, so dance begins when the goddess enters Shiva's life. And that is the point which is being made. So there is no lasya, there is no tandav, there is sthirata. So he's always shown in a meditative position. It is when she arrives that literally you have the Kali image where she's actually dancing on top of him saying, Utho, kuch to karo. So she is forcing him to engage. He's completely withdrawn. He is not engaging with the world, and therefore around him everything has become cold and everything has become like snow. Or it's become still. So she is saying that isme kuch, what is the use of this? Jab wo aati hai to fir kuch garmi aati hai. And then the snow melts and Ganga comes and then Shiva awakens. And then she dances, then he dances, and they both complement each other. And then the conversation starts. And that is how they're trying to explain creation emerges. So creation happens when the other arrives, is the idea which they're trying to communicate.
How beautiful, how intelligently thought about. I have a small dilemma and I'm really hoping you clear it for me today. We all know that the Lord of Dance is Shiva, Nataraj. And now we also know how that dance started. But his dance is usually reserved for the male dancers on stage. Poor girls like me, we don't do that as much. What we end up doing is the dance of the Natwar, the Leelas of Krishna, Bal Leela, Ras Leela, and all of those. So for us, Krishna plays a much more important role, or Natwar plays a more important role in the way we approach dance. What are the similarities between Nataraj and Natwar, and where are they different?
So that's broadly the Shaiva and Vaishnava way of looking at life. So Shiva's dance is for his own sake. So, now the context changes. So here we are not using the Shiva Shakti conversation. Here Shiva is dancing for his own sake. So when you see the Nataraj statue, his eyes are shut. But I thought there was fire. So, no, it's not fire. It's something else. Havan ho raha hai. So when Shiva is dancing, his eyes are shut. But when Krishna is dancing, his eyes are open. So that's the clue you get. That's how you get the clue. Krishna is looking at the audience. He is engaging with the audience. He's flirting with the audience. He's having fun with the audience. So Natvar is a performance where you are engaged with the audience. So in many ways like a thumri. You know, when you do the thumri is a very subtle way in which you're connecting with the audience. But if you're doing a Drupad, the Drupad singer is never looking at the audience. He goes inside and he goes deeper inside and he goes deep. And the performance is better and better and better the more inside he goes. That is Nataraj. So Nataraj is going inside and Natavara is going outside. And both are dance. So one is आपको रिझाने के लिए हम नाच रहे हैं. So the Apsaras are dancing so that Vishwamitra opens his eyes. Krishna is dancing as Mohini and seducing Shivji and saying that आप भी नाचिए. तो गोपेश्वर महाराज भी आते हैं वहाँ पे in the Brajbhumi. We are told that Shiva comes as Gopeshwar to learn this form of dancing. इससे हमें नहीं पता है कैसे नाचना है ऐसे. And Krishna is saying that I will teach you how to do the, how to flirt with the eyes, how to enjoy seduction, love. While Shivji is in a more अपनी ही दुनिया में मस्त. Which is, so the story of Shiva is about see, if you look at it from a historical angle, the Buddhist traditions, the Jain traditions were withdrawing from the world. Shiva marks the return to the world. So you withdraw and then you return. So Shiva marks the return, but not a complete return. अभी तक पहुंचे नहीं है. With Ram, Krishna and Vaishnava traditions, it is completely engaging with the world. तो ग्राम में, नगर में, शिवजी को ग्राम और नगर के साथ नहीं दिखाया जाता है. But when you're talking about Sri Krishna, you have Madhuvan, you have Mathura, you have Ayodhya, you have these cities and Kurukshetra, you have these political world. But Shivji के साथ कैलाश ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा काशी तक पहुंच जाते हैं. So these are metaphors for return into this world.
So if I may, which trend of writing do you follow? The Nataraj trend or the Natvar trend?
So depending on the book I'm writing, right? For example, if I'm writing this, which is like how to become rich in English, it's a very popular book. So I'm trying to write more massy in my own way. So if you see me telling more stories, then I have gone Natvar. Because people love stories. But if you see me going more philosophical and trying to decode it or analyze it and go analytical, because उससे मुझे आनंद आता है, तो फिर मैं नटराज के तरफ जा रहा हूँ, मैं ध्रुपद में जा रहा हूँ.
क्या बात है?
So ध्रुपद भी मजा आता है. So my own personal writing is very ध्रुपद, but then I know the value of Natvar. तो जब corporate workshop करना पड़ता है, तो फिर मुरली निकाल के, you have to play the card because, but then the magic happens that when the audience is ready, perfectly ready, and you know that in a performance, right? You will do this genuine, मजेदार performance, and when the audience is with you, आप बस थोड़े समय के लिए you go into a deep performance and the audience gets the magic and then you come out of it. तो फिर वो ध्रुपद बीच में थोड़ा just enough so that उनको उसका अनुभव होए कि there is another deep world out there. So that's how Natvar has is important. Nataraj is also important.
Beautiful. It's also about making the more meditative things palatable for the audience.
Yeah.
Sometimes we encounter that with classical also, classical dance and music, that people find it difficult to understand, and then you have to simplify it for them, the concepts, and then they may start enjoying.
See, because for most people, dance is just entertainment. It is not communication. So when we see dance today, the way dance is taught is it is taught as entertainment, to maja ke liye. So that's good. That has a purpose. Dance also is communication. So you're trying to communicate something through dance. So that becomes a very different conversation. But then that is a refined. It requires thoda zyada effort. It requires more work. It can't be done on a large scale. It can be done in an intimate setting. It can't be done on a very large scale with thousands of people. फिर वहाँ पे नहीं चलेगा. तो जो जैसे नौटंकी होता है, तो all if you sort of Sangeet and the performers of Sangeet, they will always tell you कि नहीं आपको थोड़ा public को देना पड़ता है, फिर then you have to elevate it a little bit. You can't do very heavy stuff in a mass. So you have to balance the two.
Sure. There's a trend that I have seen, reading and hearing oral traditions both, that most of our gods and goddesses are associated with some kind of a musical instrument. Saraswati ji के पास वीणा है, गणेश जी के पास मृदंगम है, all the other बांसुरी है वगैरह वगैरह. But by the time हम महाभारत तक आते हैं, तो barring one or two lead characters like say Arjuna, no one is associated with music or dance in a very big way. Why is this trend changing by the time we come to the Mahabharata?
See, Ramayana and Mahabharata deal with Jameen, Jaidad, Joru. So, you know, it's about land disputes, property dispute, mera beta raja banega. You know, all those conversations, bhaiyon ke beech mein ladai, property, you know, look at Ramayana. In Ramayana, you have Vali and Sugri fighting over property. You have Kaikai saying, my son should be king. Ravan and Kumbhakarna, Ravan and Kuber having property issues. If you go to the Mahabharata, then you have the Pandavas, Kauravas. So it's all about property dispute. It's not about appreciation of life. It is not about enjoying life. It is not about understanding life. So when you see the gods where musical instruments are there, then you know that they are talking about life, about appreciating life, not about owning life, controlling life. तो रणभूमि में आपको कभी संगीत नहीं होगा, लेकिन रंगभूमि में संगीत होता है. So रंगभूमि जो वैकुंठ है, so Shivji is about the realm of rangabhumi, the performance. So that's where you see so even Krishna has a musical instrument in the village, in the Madhuban, in Vrindavan. But the moment he goes to Mathura, there is no flute. The flute stops when Radha stops. So once Radha is not in the picture, although nowadays in Bollywood circles, जब भी Krishna को दिखाएंगे तो वो flute के साथ दिखाते हैं.
Exactly.
That's because people can't recognize a Krishna without a flute. उनको flute वाला कृष्ण चाहिए. तो अभी I am waiting for one TV serial where even in Bhagavad Gita he'll start playing the flute because audience को पसंद आता है. But it's just a question of time before that will also happen. But typically the flute wala Krishna, जो मुरलीधर Krishna है, is only found in the Madhuban. It is not there in Mathura, it is not there in Dwarka, it is not there. वो दिखाने के लिए कि यहाँ पे innocence खत्म हो गया है, paradise is lost, यहाँ पे बचपन खत्म हो गया है, जो प्रेम का जो ग्राम का जो सुख है वो नगर व्यवस्था में नहीं मिलता है. तो जहाँ जरासंध है, जहाँ पे कंस है, so you find a very different world emerging. And that's, I think, what they're trying to communicate. Music stops when war begins.
How beautiful. But I'm also concerned about how the next generation is going to see all these symbols and iconography, because मुझे खुद भी नहीं लगता था कि कृष्ण ने कभी बांसुरी बजानी छोड़ी होगी और द्वारका में भी कभी मौका मिलता होगा तो बांसुरी निकलती होगी.
See, I'll give you a practical example. I was explaining this to the producers of TV shows. But they will say, sir, वो audience को नहीं समझ में आएगा. So they start. So what you see on television is a TRP based Ramayana Mahabharata. It is not what is the scriptures are trying to communicate, because they're trying to communicate ideas. But a TV show on television is not interested in ideas. It is interested in rating, because only then they will get the money from the. So the advertisers will not publish with them, and they need the money to survive. So it's a vicious cycle. But अगर आपको सरस्वती चाहिए, then you have to do a little bit more research. थोड़ा ढूंढना पड़ेगा, सब जगह नहीं मिलेगा.
जैसे नदी भी हमारी लुप्त है, सरस्वती. There is another aspect to our topic and discussion today, which is the metaverse. It's a hot topic, hashtag which is trending every day in the IT AI world in the Silicon Valleys. You can be whatever you want to, whoever you want to be in this virtual world, which is being funded by tech giants. But at the risk of sounding like a conspiracy theorist, do you feel that somewhere within our philosophy, within our stories and mythology, there has been reference to concepts like these maybe, wherein we are talking about shape-shifting, space-time continuum, or traveling through parallel lokas.
So you can, these kind of stories, Arabian Nights are full of these stories. So lok kathaon mein to aise characters hote hain. I think metaverse is not about fantasy, it is about not dealing with reality. And they are monetizing that, to use a corporate language. कि देखो, imagine आपका दिल टूट गया, so वो आपको मार्क ज़करबर्ग बोल देगा कि पैसे दे दो, गर्लफ्रेंड बना दूंगा. You know, so that's what he's going to do. He's going to create a virtual world where you can be the boss, you can be the king, you can fly on a dragon. But to pay for it, you have to come back to the real world. And the more you have to work hard to pay for it, and it will create this beautiful, because it is based on dopamine release, right? So it is a legal drug addiction. You know, the whole tech business revolves around release of dopamine so that you get addicted to it. Even now we are all addicted to that Instagram. We are addicted because that gives them the money. So it is, you know, sharab. So, you know, when the British came to India, they introduced distilled alcohol. Alcohol, fermented alcohol hota hai. They say toddy and all that is made of fermented things. But you can ferment alcohol anywhere in your house. But if you want to do a distilled alcohol with the distillery, you have to establish a dukan. That can be taxed. So a big portion of taxation came from alcohol. So alcohol is a very good source of taxation. So revenue. So in the modern world, it is technology, but technology is designed to create opioid release, to release these things that will addict you, because then they make money. Screen time, agar aap, imagine whole day you're on screen, that's when they make money. So it's designed, unlike mythology, which is designed to help you understand life and cope with life and deal with life, maybe enjoy life and understand why the world is the way it is. This is offering you an escape. It is wo sharab de raha hai, wo aapko afeem de raha hai. It is just not called afeem, it is called, you know, it's called a metaverse, but hai wo, you know, it is the world of nasha.
Sure.
So nashaverse is a better word for it.
You know, our philosophy has always spoken about the many ways in which we can reduce the fluctuations of our mind, calming it down, focusing it inwards, and you know, trying to move away from the maya of the world. And over here we're doing the exact same thing, creating a Mayavi universe in which we shall have our mind distracted to the level of escapism from reality. If I would ask you, what would be one advice that Mahabharat's Krishna would give to Mark Zuckerberg today regarding metaverse?
Well, he will, Krishna, Mark Zuckerberg is a human being like you and me, and Krishna would look at the human being, not at the wallet. So let's first begin with that, because the conversation in the scriptures is for human beings, and to remind you that you are a human being. But you see, if your meaning comes from how much money you get, if Mark Zuckerberg was not having money, would you look at him? So he also knows the world looks at me because I have money, and as long as I have money, the world will look at me. Nabi, wo bhi ek nasha hai. So he is creating nasha because he is in nasha. So it is, Maya is about nasha. So Shivji jab nasha kar rahe hain, so he's trying to tell people कि देखो ये जो तुम करना चाहते हो, and the goddess is saying, आप वापस आइए यहाँ पे, आप काशी में आके कोतवाली कीजिए. So she is turning him around. She's telling him that you have to engage with the world. The world is a difficult place, but you are trying to hide from this world. And I think that's what all our scriptures are talking about. So everything in mythology is about dealing with the world. Bhog ki duniya, yog ki duniya, mayavi duniya. So, I mean, when you were describing this world metaverse, I was just remembering in the Nath Jogi traditions, there is this concept of Kajrivan. Jahan Kajrivan mein, it is the world of women. And if you enter it, आप बाहर नहीं आ पाओगे. एक बार अंदर जाओगे, तो तुम खुद, you will turn into a woman, and you'll never be able to step out of it. So Kajrivan ka concept hai, and I was thinking this is the world, that island where you can't end, and then Gorakhnath goes there and gets Matsyendranath out. So these stories are there about getting trapped in this island and not escaping. So these are worlds that are being created, and they're using very powerful words, but they were first colonizing geographies. Now they're colonizing minds. And we are allowing them, just as the colonizers were allowed into India. We allowed the British to come to India, right? We are allowing the technology to enter our minds and control us. Remember, we can't live without our phones. If I don't have my phone with me, I'll panic. कि कहाँ गया? पहले ज़माने में वो राक्षसों का जो जान था, it used to be in a parrot. आजकल हमारा जान हमारे फोन में है. So we will think that, वो जब अगर फोन तोड़ दोगे तो मेरा जान चला जाएगा. So that's what has happened, because we are not able to cope with life, and these are escape spaces. These are वहाँ पे हम वो दुनिया जहाँ पे आपको कोई तकलीफ नहीं है, जहाँ गम भी ना हो, जहाँ आंसू भी ना हो, just प्यार ही प्यार, वही दे रहा है मार्क ज़करबर्ग.
So, do you feel that the philosophies and the mythology that has helped us pass wisdom through generations and live with certain kind of ethos and principles in our civilization might become redundant in the coming years because of this parallel universe that we are creating with very different kind of ideals?
Well, technology will come and go, but humans will still seek love, heartbreak. वो नहीं बदलता है. Emotions don't change because technology changes.
So the mythology shall remain relevant and the wisdom shall remain contemporary.
Because, see, wisdom by definition is not based on history and geography. It is true everywhere. I can speak to a Chinese audience, I can speak to an African audience, but I cannot tell them Ramayana, Mahabharata. I have to change the story to suit what they will understand. But जो भाव होता है, वो नहीं बदलता है. So that doesn't change. The emotions never change. Sensations never change. So the Navarasa will never change. There will be Vatsalya Ras. वो हर दुनिया में 1000 साल पहले भी वात्सल्य रस था, आज भी वात्सल्य रस है. 1000 साल पहले श्रृंगार रस, माधुर्य रस, अभी भी. सो द रस भाव वो नहीं बदलता है, शब्द बदलते हैं, लय बदलता है, ताल बदलता है, राग बदलते हैं, लेकिन भाव नहीं बदलता. सो दैट डजंट चेंज. Even in TikTok, I want Vatsalya Ras. Oh, I see the little cat and I see the dog, and the attention span has changed, but the yearning for heroism, Veera Ras, Shant Ras, Shringara Ras, Madhurya Ras, all the rasas are there. You can see it on TikTok, you can see it on WhatsApp, you can see it everywhere. The desire to be powerful, the desire to defeat someone. So if you analyze the storytelling, all the storytellings is उसने मुझे मेरा दिल तोड़ा लेकिन मैंने ये कर दिया. Or you'll hear stories that the authors will keep telling stories कि my book was rejected by 1000 publishers, then I wrote a book and I became super successful. ये trope सब जगह होता है. Even the Jack Ma का story आता है कि KFC में उसने job के लिए उसको कोई reject कर दिया लेकिन वो इतना rich हो गया. So this trope is there everywhere. So it doesn't change. It is there. दुनिया में नहीं बदलता है. So I don't see it changing. It's just that you have to figure out. It is like carbohydrates, proteins and fats. Whether you are eating dal bhat or you are eating a burger or you are eating Chinese food, रूप बदलता है. लेकिन you need carbohydrates, you need fats, you need proteins, you need vitamins, minerals. In the same way, you need rasa and bhava. You may change the tal and all that.
7 minutes left. Shall we do some audience questions?
Right. We'll just go through one last question that I'm really keen on asking since we are in Bengal today, and then we'll move to the audience interaction. There is a tradition which is, I'm not sure how many people are familiar over here with, even it was very new for me, which is the Nabi Vamsha. Can you tell us a little bit about it and why is it so special since we're in Bengal?
So I was writing recently for Penguin a book called Eden, an illustrated retelling, an Indian retelling of Jewish, Christian and Islamic stories. And I realized that India has a tradition of retelling stories of the prophets. And it was told, and one of the oldest epic works is found in Bengal. So it was written in what is now Bangladesh, but in Bengal region, and it was called Nabi Bonso. And it was one of them. After that, there were many more. There was Rasul Vijaya and all these. And I had never heard of them. I would always refer to Arabic and Persian texts to get stories of the Islamic world. And then I was surprised that there were works written in Bengali, there were works written in Tamil, there were works written in Malayalam, which were retelling the stories. So Adam's story, Eve ka story, stories of the Prophet Muhammad, all these were told in by Syed Sultan in the 17th century in Bengal. It is called Nabi Bonso. And the only reason I got access to it is because someone has done a PhD thesis on it, and I happened to find the PDF. And I was shocked that they were describing these stories about Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel, so Qabil and Habil and Cis, and the descriptions of the stories. And then you realize that because the storyteller is based in Bengal, he's familiar with Indian stories, and therefore he's describing battles which almost sound like the Mahabharata, with the chariots and charioteers. So there is Jibril on one side, who is the charioteer. Jibril is Gabriel. Gabriel is the chariot of Shish, who is the son of Cain and, of Adam and Eve, the good son. On the other side, you have Cain, who is led by the devil Iblis, and they are in a great battlefield, and it is almost like the Pandavas and Kauravas are fighting each other. So he's using the Indian mythological motifs to tell Islamic stories. And it is written in Bengal in 300-400 years ago, and I was quite shocked that I didn't know about it. So, I thought it was important that we should know about our culture.
Quick two-line question before we move to the audience. We all know that Bengal is a land where Ma Durga is worshipped too. What about Lord Shiva or Lord Ram? Do we have worship of Lord Ram and Shiva also here?
So everything is there in India. It's just that the forms change a lot. So when you see the Kalighat paintings, the Shiva here has a pot belly. So it's not six-pack Shiva of, nowadays WhatsApp generation. He has a big belly and he's more relaxed, very relaxed God. Ram is associated with the very famous Kritti Bhasha Ramayana, was written, one of the oldest regional Ramayans was written in, and there are stories in Kritti Bhasha Ramayana. For example, the Dhobi story that we hear comes from Kritti Bhasha Ramayana. So Kritti Bhasha Ramayana introduces us to the Dhobi. In the Valmiki Ramayana, it is just public gossip. There is no Dhobi as such. Dhobi appears in the Kritti Bhasha Ramayana. So we have a very strong regional stories that again, we only talk of Sanskrit or Hindi. So the problem is, we think India and we think Sanskrit and Hindi. We forget Bengali, Odia, Assami, Tamil, Telugu. All the languages have very beautiful traditions that unfortunately need to be more popularized.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This has been so insightful and you've been so patient with my questions. I will need your patience for another 5 minutes because we'll open the floor for some questions in the audience. We'll begin whoever you choose.
No, you decide. You're the master of the ceremony. So.
Oh, okay. So, sir in blue kurta, please. Can we have a mic for him? How much time do we have? How many questions can we take?
We have 5 minutes. We can
so
do
5 questions?
3 questions.
3 questions. Okay, 3 questions.
Hello. So hello Devdutt sir. I was a very big fan of you from my childhood. I was following you from the Epic channel.
Thank you.
And it's like dreams come true for talking with you. So if you look at the Bengali culture, what we found that the goddess Lakshmi and Saraswati are generally known as the daughters of Durga. But what actually happened? We look at the stories of I think you got the question of me.
So what's the see? We must understand that there is no actually in mythology, right? So the oldest images of Lakshmi, even before stories of Lakshmi are found in Buddhist traditions. The oldest image of Saraswati comes from Jain traditions, right? So these ideas change over time. In different parts of India, in Maharashtra, when they say Mahalakshmi, they don't mean Lakshmi, they mean Durga. Right? So, all ideas have different ways of communicating. What is unique to Bengal is the Durga Pandal image of Durga with Lakshmi and Saraswati on either side. That's very unique to Bengal. It's in the eastern part of India, it's not found anywhere else. So, that's a very uniquely Bengali visualization. Normally, Lakshmi and Saraswati are on either side of Vishnu. So in Jagannath temple in Odisha, Lakshmi and Saraswati are there, but on either side of Jagannath. not Durga. So that if you see the local regional forms are very different. So historically Lakshmi is different, geographically Lakshmi is different. So we should enjoy this diversity.
Right. The lady here on the left.
Hi, sir. I'm a big Shivji fan, but I love your books and your ideas and philosophy on every myth you say. But I have a very big question, which is Shivji, when we pray, why priests say that pray when Shivji's eyes are closed? Why open? What happens actually?
I didn't understand the question.
If I am praying to Shivji, why I get to hear that when I've been advised that if you have a picture of Shivji, get a meditation one, not the angry one. Why?
Well, depends on how superstitious you are. Yeah. So some people you don't want angry things in your house. Yeah, you want happy things in your house. So imagine if your boyfriend comes and gives you a bag of bones instead of giving you roses. That is what Shivji would do, right? Shivji, when he got married, went and gave snakes to everybody. So we are like, oh my God, we don't want this son-in-law. ये मेरी बेटी के साथ शादी करने आया है और सबको जहर पिला रहा है. Because Shivji doesn't understand the meaning of it. So this is called sympathetic magic, by the way. What you're saying is called sympathetic magic. You only keep things in your house that give you what you want. So you don't put dead body images in the house. So many people will say, don't put Nataraj Murti in the house. They will say, don't put Nataraj Murti. So these are all called sympathetic magic. Don't put Krishna playing the flute without Radha. If you keep Radha, then she'll bind him and keep him safe. नहीं तो वो सबको घुमाता रहेगा and you will do Rasa Leela and never do your job. So these are ways of explaining sympathetic magic. Rest is up to how superstitious you are.
Right. The gentleman in front.
My question to you, sir. How much of Mahabharata do you think is fantasy and how much of it is real and how much of it is fabricated or mythology for that matter?
See, for the believer, everything is real. Right? जो विश्वास करता है उसके लिए भगवान सच है. जो विश्वास नहीं करता उसके लिए भगवान झूठ है. तो अभी भगवान सच है या झूठ, अब वैज्ञानिक को पूछोगे, आस्तिक को पूछोगे या नास्तिक को पूछोगे. तो विश्वास की बातों पे ये जिसको अभी if you go and ask Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that does Krishna exist, he says of course he exists, can't you see him? But if you go and ask let's say Karl Marx, he'll say, oh, these people is the opium of the people. Now will I trust Marx or will I trust Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? You decide as a Bengali gentleman.
Thank you so much.
J.R.R. Tolkien wrote this Lord of the Rings and he wanted it to replace the absence of mythology in England and other things. Do you think that the Lord of the Rings qualify as mythology?
See, to qualify as mythology, it has to be transmitted over generations by a group of people and it has to shape the culture of a people. So Lord of the Rings has come to us as entertainment. It does connect with us, but the man who wrote it was influenced by a Finnish mythology book called Kalevala. So it's a very famous book called Sampo and all that. If you read TED Ed videos, there are beautiful videos on this Kalevala and Sampo, and there are these whole stories from Finland. So Finland has a very strong mythological tradition which inspired the Lord of the Rings. He was also inspired by Norse myths. So the ring, the idea of the ring comes very strongly from the Norse myths. He was influenced by the North European mythology because Europe at that time was going through the world wars and they needed fantasy to calm them down. They needed to feel heroic. And that is when he wrote the books and he was creating this he was creating a metaverse. Yeah? So that's what he was trying to create because when we start believing it is real. So that's what he was doing. Yeah?
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are totally out of time. Sorry
Yes,
to break
we
your
are.
hearts and have taken your time, I guess. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Pattanaik,
Thank you.
for answering all our questions with such patience.
Thank you so much.